Hi, my name is Nairi Blankenberg, and I'm the founder of Creative Repair Studio that flips small, medium-sized regional and township museums across Africa for a new generation. We use creativity, creative industries, and also creative people, plus Indigenous knowledge to create a completely different experience of a museum, as well as a different model of how museums and cultural infrastructure can work. So we've launched this brand. Well, we haven't launched it yet, soon to launch brand called A42. And A42 is essentially a group of museums across the continent. Think of it like your hotel brand or maybe your Nando's or your Southern Sun or something like that, where we have members who have really unique, amazing stories to tell across the continent who all unite under a brand that we have yet to introduce to the world. And so I am on a quest, really, and it's to find out from many different people is how can we create a African museum or a creative space or a hub for creative production and knowledge or a place where young African people can connect with the past and the future and the present through creativity and with another. How do we create that kind of space? And so that's a question I have more than anything else. It's something that I want to get the answers from. So if anyone has ideas, it would be great to speak with you. Our website is www.creativerepairstudio.com. And then you can sign up for the newsletter, but also make some comments there. But it's a quest, it's sort of a disruptive quest. And we call ourselves a social startup because we're trying to do something differently. And that really brings me to the idea of the frustration around the lack of innovation when it comes to the systems and structures in creativity and heritage. We have a system that frankly does not work. We have government supporting heritage. We have the market supporting art. And we have a lot of artists who are just trying to sell stuff to stay alive. We have some arts education, but we don't have a regenerative ecosystem that allows for innovation, new models for doing things, new ways of doing things. And I think that that's what we really need. We really need to understand how art and heritage and culture are vital things in everybody's lives. They tell us who we are, they help us connect to our ancestors and to the people who will come after us, particularly in the context of urbanization. And we need new creative ways, new sustainable creative ways to think of how can we make these places live. They're important to our lives, but we're not actually providing enough support for them. And I think that it's interesting right now because you're seeing the hugest, in this generation, the biggest transfer of wealth from public to private hands that we've seen across the world, really since, I don't know since when. But what you start to see is that it's not even about whole countries. It's not about the government versus the private sector. It's like a small number of people have an inordinate amount of wealth, and everybody else actually must just pick up the crumbs. And what happens with these people with a lot of wealth is that they consider themselves good if they give back, and they form foundations. And those foundations essentially are about how they decide how, in a somewhat equitable way, they can distribute funding for the arts. We have a real problem with both the philanthropic model and the government model. The African-based philanthropy is not really funding the arts. The government is not really funding arts, culture, and heritage. So you have a huge, huge gap where we need to actually look at not just companies and corporations, but wealthy individuals about, okay, collecting art is not philanthropy. Collecting art is buying something. Sure, you're supporting an artist for a little bit, and then you can flip that thing and make some money off it. Art in many contexts is a commodity. We need to look at, okay, well, if you have money and you believe in expression, in Indigenous knowledge, in spirituality, in preserving the past, in archiving, and heritage and culture, how are you building institutions? How are you contributing to something that's a lot more sustainable than buying one piece of art? We have to go beyond in the imagination of that art support is buying art. We need to go beyond. We need to think of a completely different system of valuing things that are not commercial that we don't have yet. And so I guess I want to invite everyone to think this through with me because it's tricky. And it's not just about looking for money. It's about saying, okay, if we value African knowledge systems, if we value creativity, then how do we make sure that that sustains itself?